Hi friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Allie Wilkins. If it is your first time here, welcome. I am a teacher, I'm a priestess, I'm an oracle. I work in the Akashic Records, and essentially I'm just obsessed with all things around initiation, ancient civilizations, and the ancient feminine, to be specific. And so much of the work that I do is really weaving together all of the different lineages that I remember, that I study, that I really feel that I'm called to like weave these different mystical traditions together. So that's one of the things that I do here on this channel. So I invite you to subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. And I also have a lot of different courses, master classes, teachings on my website too that you can check out. So if you're coming back to my channel, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the evolution of feminine energy. Because we're frankly ready for the next version of this, right? For years, we've been hearing about masculine and feminine energy and trying to balance them and polarities and all this stuff. And like, we're ready for the next version of this. That's the entry level. And it's okay. Like if you're in this space where you're just hearing about it, that's perfect. It's finding you at the right time. But for a lot of us, we've done the work of balancing our masculine and feminine energy. We've felt the swing, what is the P word? The pendulum of masculine and feminine energy. So I'm just going to speak to that really quick before I go on to like really what I want to say in this video. The pendulum. Some of you might be really familiar with this, but when we start to recognize like, whoa, my masculine energy is really like, I'm holding more masculine energy than is really my natural essence. That is true for the majority of women, not for everyone, because everyone does have different programming, different experiences. But for the vast majority of women in the Western world, we have more masculine energy because that's how our society operates. Our society has legitimately removed the feminine aspect from it, unless it is one of the approved versions of the feminine, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So it's natural that we're going to have more masculine energy. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of looking at like, does this feel like my unique essence, or is this something that has just evolved from programming, right? I came from like, I've been in my own business for 5 years full time now, but before that, I worked in a very, very large corporate company. And, you know, when you're in the corporate world, like you have to have strong masculine energy or you won't get those jobs. Like you won't be able to stay in those sorts of positions. So that also on top of our society, if you have had a job like that, or you're just in the workforce for the most part, like every job will be different, but especially in the corporate world, that's really going to like structure you as being more masculine. It's very difficult to then shift that off when you come home. And that's a lot of the work that we've been doing of like, well, I want to hold the feminine pole, but like we're showing up in this strong masculine essence. So we recognize like, okay, I'm holding a lot more masculine energy than is really true to my soul. So how do I start to soften into my feminine? How do I start to become more feminine? That's like the very entry level into this work. And a lot of times what happens when we do that is we tap more into our feminine energy. So we go from like being more masculine, we swing on the pendulum over here to holding more feminine energy. But then we're like, wait, now I feel kind of ungrounded. Well, first you're like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. This is amazing. I love it so much. But then you might recognize, okay, I feel a little ungrounded, or like I'm not protecting myself as much as I need to. Um, you'll start to notice like the repercussions of losing some of the masculine energy because we need both. It's just we want to have both in the way that is aligned with our unique essence, right? So we start to swing on the pendulum, and first it's a big swing, and then it starts to come closer and closer into the middle. Then you find a space of balance. Congratulations, that is the first exploration. That is the first initiation. The next part is where we're going, okay? So let me get more comfortable for this one. So the issue with the first initiation, which is important and vital, we have to go through that. The issue with that, though, is the way that we see the feminine, or the way that the feminine is depicted, is through the patriarchal society's eyes. It's not the real feminine. This is the approved versions of the feminine. So there might be like a few things that come to your mind. I mean, just the phrase "I'm gonna soften into my feminine," like a lot of the faces of the feminine are sharp as fuck. Like they are not soft. They are um wild and primal, and like a version of the feminine that is not depicted in our society and that you will only know about through maybe seeing people go like insane once in a while, or through remembering things from 5,000 years ago, through remembering things um, from prior versions of yourself, or from studying some of the things from the ancient feminine timelines. That's really the only way you're going to actually know, like for real, know about them. So we have these, like, you could consider this maybe like 3 or 4 archetypes of, this really submissive woman. And this is like a trending thing right now, which I think is great to help us get out of the masculine energy. But I also think that it is not a full representation of, like, that's dangerous to only hold that energy. That's dangerous to just be in that archetype, because feminine energy is not just submissive, right? You could be submissive to your husband or something in some ways, but being anyways, that's a different conversation. So we can see the feminine either being depicted as like the seductive, sensual, like eating a mango with juice dripping down her face, right? Delicious, yum. That's a beautiful aspect. There's also another aspect that could be depicted as sort of this like fairy running through the woods barefoot, that's like going to bask on a rock, or like going to cry into the river, or like all the depictions of the feminine that we really see are this super soft, submissive, easy to control version of the feminine. This is why I'm saying that the patriarchal, these are the versions that the patriarchy has approved. And this is why it's like, okay, the stamp has been given, like, sure, they can become this. That's not damaging or threatening. Because the feminine in her full power is anything but submissive. She is anything but easy to control. Those are some of the archetypes of the feminine that are important for us to know how to be in, that we want to learn how to embody them, but we also can't forget the other. That's like the icing on the cupcake. What about the entire cupcake itself, right? We can't forget about that aspect. And so we've licked the icing off the cupcake in the initial part of the work. Now we're going into, all right, let's eat this cake. Okay. So the cake is made up of so much more than these soft versions of the feminine. And I'm not trying to diminish those archetypes. They're important. They're just the versions that are approved of. So what are the versions that are not approved of? Well, we could think about like, okay, so let me put a pin in that just for a second. And I want to talk about working with goddesses as deities. This has been my entry into this consciously for the last 6 years, unconsciously for the last 9. I started working with the goddesses in 2015. It's 2024 now. So yeah, that's 9 years. 2015, I just was like dabbling with goddesses. I was interested in them. But really 6 years ago, I started to actively work with them, starting with Lakshmi. Then it went into Sekhmet. Then it went into Isis and Hathor. Then it went into Green Tara. Um, then it went into Aphrodite. Like there's so many of them. And this has been such a powerful way for me to access some of these other archetypes. Um, because it's a way to tap into those embodiments. And the goddess herself is one. You guys, there's so many things there's so many areas I want to go off into, because this is a really, really large conversation. I'm trying to make it like 30 minutes. So, okay. The goddess is one. She is all of the separate goddess beings. So all the ones I just mentioned, there's thousands of separate goddesses based on cultures. They typically hold the same archetypes. But the goddess is all. She is not just goddess of beauty or goddess of the rivers or goddess of abundance. She is all encompassing. So we might think like, well, let me back up a second. Um, the first split, here's where we'll go. The first split happened about 2000 years ago, 1500 years ago, with the introduction of the Christian church, splitting the feminine off. And before this, there's so much here that I want to say. Let's go back to actually the beginning of the patriarchy. This is really where the feminine started to be removed. And people would be like, hurt and killed for honoring the feminine principle, for showcasing this full spectrum feminine. P.S. This is the name of my next course, which I'll talk about at the end of this. So we started to see repercussions when women or when people would hold their full spectrum feminine energy. So it slowly starts to diminish because then people are like, oh, it's not safe to be this way anymore. I'll do it behind the scenes. But then it turned into something over like 1,000 years when we go to the introduction of the Christian church, which really was the Catholic Church at the time. Um, then there's this whole split between Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, who were both they were both one, right? They were one. They were both the all. They were both representations of the goddess. They were both high priestesses, but they were depicted through the church's eyes as one being holy and one being impure. So Mother Mary was depicted as the holy, pure, innocent, what is good, right? And even it said, this is just like, I get so hyped on this, you guys. There's like, she's the virgin. She didn't even have sex to have Jesus. Like that entire idea, calling her the Virgin Mary, virgin meant back in those times, it meant a woman who was unto herself, a woman who was sovereign in herself, a woman who was her own authority. She was not owned by anyone else. Virgin today means that you haven't had sex with anyone yet. You haven't lost your virginity. So we are seeing the Virgin Mary as this depiction of a woman who is like pure because she hasn't had sex. It meant something totally different back then. When we look at then Mary Magdalene, who was cast into like the good bad duality, she's cast as the whore and the prostitute. Literally, the Pope called her a prostitute. But again, back then, prostitute and whore meant completely different things. They meant devotees of the goddess, meaning they were high priestesses. Whore was actually like a holy title 1,500 years ago. I talk about all this stuff way more in depth in my course, The Priestess Returns. If you want to learn more about that, I'll put one of the videos up here about it. So we have this initial split of the feminine, of like the good feminine and the bad feminine, right? And now we would probably call the bad feminine the dark feminine. The dark feminine is really just whatever has not been approved of. Um, so when we look at the dark feminine, this has been the aspects of femininity that are not welcomed in our society. So 50 years ago, the dark feminine would have been the seductress, would have been this version of a woman who's very sexual. And maybe like 70 years ago, I'm thinking 1950, but it's like 2024. So I'm just like pretending it's 2000. So like time period of mid 1900s, most people were a lot more pious. Most people were a lot more like, going to church every Sunday, and they knew all their Bible verses and all these different things. And by the way, this corresponds to all monotheistic religions, not just Christianity. This is just what I'm more familiar with. So I'm speaking about this because I'm not going to talk about other religions that I don't know that much about, right? That's like not a cool thing to do. So I'm speaking about Christianity, but this really aligns with any monotheistic religion that has cast out the goddess, and that focuses on a primary male god. Um, so during this time period, people wouldn't have been as sexually open. And then we go into the 1960s where there's this big, influx of freedom of sexuality and all these sorts of things. Ironically, at the same time period, I believe this was actually like the late 40s, but by the time this got to most of the world, the Mary Magdalene's text, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Nag Hammadi text, the Gospel of Philip and Thomas, I believe, are released that literally talk more about the feminine qualities of God. So anyway, that's just like fun fact. These dark feminine qualities then would have been things that were more associated with open sexuality, like, dressing seductively. Now that's like normal. So people now say like, oh, the dark feminine is, she's always depicted as this very sensual, seductive, she's wearing all black, she's like mysterious. That's not the dark feminine, because that's desirable. The dark feminine is like pushed up against. People do not like the actual dark feminine. And that's why it takes so much power and courage to be able to hold that frequency, because you will get so much backlash for it. Um, and that's like the real dark feminine. I also teach the dark feminine archetypes, which allow us to go deeper and deeper. So, for example, some of these different archetypes are like the wild woman, are the liberator, which is Kali, or even Sekhmet, the versions that are like the creator, the destroyer, the preserver. People are mostly scared of Kali, right? It's these sort of aspects, but there can also be the witch, or the female magician is what I call her, the seductress. These are all sort of like entryways into the actual dark feminine, but people think those are the dark feminine, so I have a course for it. That takes you into be able to hold the deeper elements of the real dark feminine. So Mary Magdalene kind of was in the initial split from the church. Mary Magdalene was sort of labeled as bad, and all of the archetypes that went along with her, or that were cast into this version of femininity that is like not acceptable, mostly because you can't control it, mostly because she's not tameable, she can't be put into a little cage, right? Those are then called dark feminine. So now we are very split off. We don't really understand truly what feminine energy is, because all we've really seen of it is either the woman who works her way up at work, which really is more masculine energy, or the woman who is very open in her sexuality, or the woman who is like very soft and whimsical and like doesn't ever argue and is just like easygoing about everything and super surrendered. Um, that aspect, just by the way, that has there is a lot of feminine energy in that, but there's an imbalance in masculine energy, because if that's the only archetype you can hold, you're actually very imbalanced, because there's a need for grounding of the masculine to be able to support that, so it's like nourishing and healthy for someone. um Anyways, so we're shown a few different images of the feminine, but none of them are really what the feminine truly is. And this is why I work with goddesses, because I don't think that there's actually people who are embodying all of it. I think there's some people who are definitely doing the work to showcase more of a wide variety. Like, hey, I can be insane and feral, but also like really cute, and also really seductive, and also a warrior, and also a visionary, and also like really um I can be like a lover, and I can be the muse. There are people who are doing this work, but I just work with the goddess because that's the pure energy. That's like, she's got it embodied fully, right? So for me, that has been what has helped me to access all these different things. And what I really realize is that there's not containers for this work. There's not containers that really help us there's containers that help us break free of our programming, absolutely, but not in the way that we are working with a spectrum of the feminine frequency that allows us to be able to learn how to embody so many different parts of the feminine, that some of them we might already have mastery in, but some of them also like we might be really nervous about, or it's an edge for us, like it's scary. Or some of them might be like, I don't really see what the why I would want to embody that. What's the benefit? But when we go into all of them, like it brings us so much. We expand so much. And I've seen this with myself. I've seen this working with clients for so long now. I've seen this work, and I've seen how people just like become totally different. The same version of themselves. It's really the difference is they shake off so much programming. So they're so much freer. They're so much more liberated. Um, and they're really holding their true frequency, not like, what their parents want them to be, or what society wanted them to be, or how they should act, or any of that stuff. It's super liberating and freeing. So with that said, I created something called Full Spectrum Feminine. And this is a year-long exploration where we're going to have time every single month. We're going to have a month for each of the archetypes to go in and really explore. And I'm blending in all of my mastery here, which addresses this from every spectrum. A lot of times we're just addressing something from an intellectual spectrum, which is like nice, but it's not an embodiment. It's just more stuff that we know. Doesn't mean that we're holding that energy, right? So every month, if you decided this is something that you want to be a part of, every month you're going to get a video that's going to teach you about an archetype, a theme for the month that aligns with the energy of that time of year, with that month particularly, that aligns with astrological movements, that aligns with a specific goddess, or even sometimes there might be a few goddesses that you can work with, that you can choose from, and with a particular archetype. That's going to be to address your intellectual understanding of the theme of that part of the feminine spectrum. Then I'm going to create a workbook for you, which my workbooks are really good. I know some people's workbooks are like really lame and they're just like, there's not substance, right? Mine are not like that. Mine are, depending on the theme, I've had workbooks that are 60 pages, I've had workbooks that are 20. But they're going to be addressing the key factors of each archetype, of each theme, and pointing you into directions to look at of like, what are the, um, like empowerments and the skill sets of this archetype? How can you infuse this into your life, into your relationships, into your work, into your habits? How can we do all of that? And then also looking at, hey, where are the edges for you within this archetype and this theme? And where are the blocks? What is the shadow of this archetype? And does that show up for you? And allowing you to really look at for your own life personally, how is this touching me? How am I embodying this already? Where am I cut off from it? What forms of programming are blocking me away from this? And one of my clients who did the Realm of the Dark Feminine, which is a much shorter version of this, she was saying, like, I've been able to identify so much programming that I had no idea was there because I never really spent time like looking at these different nuanced versions of this specific part of the feminine, right? So you're going to start to, and I've experienced this too. You're going to start to see like, whoa, I didn't know that chain was there. Let's cut that right off. I don't need this ankle chain, thanks. So that's going to be bringing this into the physical world. So we've done the mind with the videos. We're going into the physical embodiment of how you are being throughout the world, right? Then my other skill set is as an oracle, I work in the Akashic Records. And I'm going to be channeling different journeys for you each month to support you with the expansion of your light body, to be able to hold more of these frequencies. And the way that I transmit the journeys themselves through the Akashic Records, some of them will be more energetic. Some of them will be more taking you through an experience where your guides are actually going to come in and show you, like, here's what the block is. Here's where, hey, tap more into this energy, or like do more of this, or feel more into this, or look at this over here. They're going to give you the guidance needed to understand like how you can open your field to hold more of that frequency. So every single month will be different in terms of the journey that comes through. Every single person will experience it differently as well. But the Akashic journeys are really what, like, that's like everyone says that that's always their favorite thing that I share. So, but the workbooks are also like really good. So that's what is going to be shared in Full Spectrum Feminine as a self-study version. There's also another version that I'm calling the Lotus option. And this also includes a group dynamic, which I think that this is really, really honestly where the true magic is. This is where the deepest growth is, because not only are you held accountable by other people in the group itself, but you are also showing up at a deeper level typically. And you'll have the support of other people. Plus, other people mirror things to you. They show you different aspects of different archetypes that you would never even think of. So it gives you, no pun intended, it gives you more of a full spectrum understanding of each archetype rather than just doing it by yourself. So with that option, with the Lotus option, there is a Voxer chat. So this is basically like a texting app, if you don't know what Voxer is, where you have access to it every day all year. So we can be sharing what comes up for us, um, what our edges are, what our challenges are with specific things, where we're noticing, like, oh, I never knew that this programming was here, but I'm seeing this from my mom. Or my brother always said this to me growing up, and I can see that that's affecting this now. You have a space to talk about it with people who are in the same work. So that's super valuable. And there's also going to be one sister circle a month that's live. So I really didn't want this to be something that was like, you have so much to do, right? Every month, basically, you just have to watch a video, which will be under an hour. You'll have to do the read and do the workbook, and then listen to an Akashic journey that will be probably 30 minutes, maybe up to an hour sometimes, but probably only 30 minutes. And then you can come to one sister circle a month to actually see everybody on screen, and we'll just be talking about our experiences. And this is a way that we can bond with each other, that we can make new friends, that are interested in this type of work. Like that is just like the most valuable thing. Um, but the work you're doing on yourself is also very, very valuable. So those are the two different ways that you can join Full Spectrum Feminine if you want to take that route. And I think that like you can also totally do this work on your own. But I will say having a container creates the initiatory experience in a much more potent way, in a much more tangible and obvious way, because you are choosing like, hey, I am investing in this, not only for the money part, but like I'm investing in this. So I'm putting money into this expansion, which automatically means you're going to take it more seriously, which automatically means you're going to put more focus and effort into it. But also, like everything is laid out for you. You don't have to go look up or research or read 500 books like I've done, or figure things out for yourself. It's all created for you, and you just do it, right? You just read it, you just soak in that essence. And then you have a full month to really bathe in that energy. And through the initiation itself, through the energetic movement, that is going to bring in so much more awareness for you, just like as the days go by. People will say certain things to you, or you might have certain opportunities that mirror things back to you that you would never have even noticed before. So, yeah. But I mostly wanted to make this video, one, to talk about Full Spectrum Feminine, but also because we are just ready for a new iteration of our feminine exploration. What we have been shown of the feminine is a very small fraction. It's the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cupcake. It's not even touching the surface. And when we think about our ancient feminine way of being, the way that women were 5,000 BC, which is, by the way, you might be like, weren't they cave women? No, we have been like very purposely misled in so many ways to believe that the ancients the people who lived 5,000 years ago, we've been led to believe that they were like stupid and that they were just like living in huts. They were actually like building the Great Pyramids. They were actually like mapping the entire astrological um thing. You know what I mean? Like, could you look up at the stars and identify every constellation? Hard no. I know that you couldn't. They were incredibly smart. They were incredibly ahead of us in many, many, many ways. And all you have to do to really understand that is ask why the Library of Alexandria was burnt, that had millions of scrolls of this ancient knowledge. And then all of a sudden, like, look at where we're at today. We don't have attention spans. Like, you get the drift of what I'm saying. So when we tap into these ancient versions of the woman, she is so much broader and wider than we think that she is, right? And it's time that we tap into that. And this is the whole reason why I have really devoted my life to teaching the ancient feminine way, to embodying it myself first, to studying it, to remembering it for myself, to free myself of certain forms of programming, then to help you do the same. That is my mission. So Full Spectrum Feminine is an awesome way to do that. There's payment plans. If you need a different payment plan, feel free to email me and we can figure out something that will work, or I can offer you something different, like if I think something else might be a better fit. If you want to look into some of the other things I have, the Priestess Returns really showcases the feminine as the high priestess. And that is, I believe, the four faces of Mary Magdalene as high priestess. That takes you more into the understanding of the fall of the priestesses, the split that Christianity and the Catholic Church created 1500 years ago. Really goes into a lot about that. Um, and how you embody some of the archetypes of the high priestess. The other thing you can do is Return to Goddess Masterclass, which is free. I would definitely download that if you haven't already. That's just really showcasing the shift from the matriarchy to the patriarchy, what happened and what that was all about. Um, what else do I have? The Realm of the Dark Feminine is a 7-week self-study course now if you want to just go into the dark feminine energies. Um, I know there's something else. What else? What is the other thing I have? I'm forgetting. You can go look at my website. Oh, the Womb of Creation. So that's another masterclass I have. That one is free. Um, and that talks about the descent into the underworld. We've kind of that's usually good to pay attention to and to watch like in the fall as we're going into the winter season. But if you're in the southern hemisphere, you might be about to do that soon. So anywho, you can download those for free. And I have a bunch of other master classes. You can just go to my website, alliewilkins.com, and just like browse. I have lots of different courses and sadhanas and master classes. And I also do one-on-one mentorship as well. Um, and I do a Temple of Sekhmet specifically. I call this the devouring. So if you're really, really ready to like step into a whole new experience of yourself, that is a temple for that. And I also do another mentorship called the Oracle that is more custom built for you. And you can look on my website and you'll see all that. But Full Spectrum Feminine is what's coming next. And we're starting January 7th. So the doors are going to close January 17th. Our first sister circle is going to be January 22nd. So if you want to join, just join now so that you can get access when it first opens. You have more time to go through the material and to sit with the energy of that before our first sister circle. If you have any questions about that, you can email me at alliewilkinsabundance@gmail.com. You can message me on Instagram at allie.wilkins. Yeah, and I would love to hear any thoughts you have, any comments you have just about this subject or this topic in general. Please put those in the comments. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel because I talk about stuff like this all the time. You can go look also if you're new at the playlist. There's an Ancient Feminine playlist. There's an Ascension playlist. There's all sorts of stuff. And then just make sure also lastly to like the video if you enjoyed it. That helps more people to find it and more people to understand more of what the real, true, full spectrum feminine is. Because it's time that we liberate ourselves from all these chains and really step into the next iteration of what feminine energy is. So that's what I'm here for. All right. I'm sending you guys so much love. I'm wishing you a happy, happy new year. It's like the fake Gregorian New Year, but we can still tune into the energy. Okay, that's all. Sending you guys so much love. Bye.